Consumer Reports is a nonprofit organization that advocates for truth, transparency, and fairness in the marketplace. And they're looking at improving food safety and nutrition oversight at the Food and Drug Administration. Brian Ronholm is the Director of Food Policy for Consumer Report. He's the former Deputy Undersecretary for Food Safety at the USDA. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on.
So there was an op-ed in Politico that said this, quote, "The food side of FDA is approaching failure mode because of the low priority of food within FDA, the agency's fragmented organizational structure for food, and the lack of sustained and empowered leadership from the top." Break that down for us, Brian. First, how is food a low priority at the FDA?
Yeah, everyone, especially consumers, depends on the agency to perform its role effectively. And so we need to have confidence in their ability to do that. But it's becoming increasingly clear that the public confidence is in jeopardy. You know, the running joke among those of us who work on food policy is that the F in the FDA is silent. And it's become a running joke because it's a dynamic that has been going on for years and has led to serious problems within the food program as it relates to structure, governance, and performance, as you mentioned. So one of the issues pointing to how we got here is the lack of a single full-time, fully empowered expert leader of all aspects of the food program at the FDA.
And I guess a lot of it has to do with that organizational structure. So drill down a little bit on that and what the problem there is and how that impacts food safety.
Sure. So in recent decades, most of the FDA commissioners that have been appointed have been medical specialists who naturally focus on the drug and medical device programs, biologics, tobacco, et cetera. So this leadership focus is justified when you consider the significant impact that these programs have on public health. But this means that in the competition for commissioner time and support, the food program is a second-class citizen within the FDA. So no commissioner has the bandwidth to provide strategic leadership and management accountability to set a program that regulates 80% of our food supply. So as a result of all this, food gets lost in the shuffle.
And I wonder what the funding for the food side of FDA's work indicates about its priority level for the agency.
No, that's a great question. And that's kind of one of the governance problems that the agency is facing, because over the years, what we've seen is despite an increase in overall funding, we've actually seen food inspections go down. And so that points to certainly a management issue that exists within the agency that needs to be addressed. And it also speaks to the fragmented structure of how the food program is organized within the agency. You have several centers reporting directly to the commissioner, all have responsibilities over the food program. So that creates a dynamic that it's difficult to organize, it's difficult to manage.
So what is the Food Safety Modernization Act?
So that was a comprehensive food safety law that Congress passed over 10 years ago, and then was signed into law in 2012. And since then, there's been a very slow implementation of the food safety rules that are associated with the enactment of that law. And that's one of the governance management issues that the agency is facing. So there's still a lot of pieces of that rule that have yet to be rolled out. And a big part of that is a new proposed rule that was released relating to the regulation of ag water that, on the surface, it doesn't require any testing. And in some respects, it's actually weaker than existing voluntary industry standards. So, the problems that FDA has with implementing FSBA certainly points to the overall problem of structure and governance, absolutely.
And I guess, I don't have to state the obvious, but, food safety, people can die from contaminated food. So if you could describe some of the biggest threats to food safety that the FDA would need to be concerned about.
Yeah, I think it's easy to point to recent examples. Certainly over the past several years, you've seen several outbreaks related to leafy greens, fresh produce, and that speaks to the importance of implementing these food safety rules to address prevention issues. So with that slow implementation of these rules, you certainly create some problems. There are other problems. The recent infant formula recall and the opaqueness that is emanating from the agency as it in terms of pushing information out to consumers, and it's created a really tough situation, and it's unfortunate that we're at a point where we know more about what's going on in Ukraine than we do about what's going on with the infant formula recall. So when you add those issues, you look at toxic heavy metals in baby food, the produce rule, the infant formula. These are issues that are stacking up and that need the focus of a dedicated person to focus on it.
And what do you think are the likelihood of having that dedicated person with the authority to focus on what you think needs to be done?
I think it's a high likelihood that this could happen. I would hope that the new commissioner, Robert Califf, would scrutinize these programs and take a look at what's best for the agency. There's certainly a lot of dedicated, passionate professionals at the FDA working on these issues, and we need to make sure that their talents are adequately leveraged so that consumers are protected and foodborne illness rates are declining. I mean, it's absolutely critical that these issues receive the attention by the commissioner and the appointment of a dedicated professional to focus on it.
And Brian, you used to be the Deputy Undersecretary for Food Safety at USDA. If you could briefly just explain how the responsibilities are split between USDA and the FDA. Absolutely.
So kind of the rule of thumb to use when you're considering the authorities of the agencies is the Food Safety and Inspection Service at USDA has authority over meat, poultry, processed egg, and catfish products. And the FDA has authority over almost everything else. So that works to be an 80-20 split. So I think if you were to design a food safety program from scratch, it certainly wouldn't look like the way we have it now.
All right. Well, Brian, we appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.